about 2/3 of the film is CG like this, and we did a pretty good chunk of that. We did about an hour of that. That includes, battle scenes and action scenes. It's pretty fascinating to watch because you can see where, where the stunt guy, where Sam Worthington hands off to his stunt double and back when he's getting chased by the Thanator, and how the battle scenes were done.
But you talked about working in a sterile environment, but before we did that, we went to Hawaii. And Sam tells a fun story of when we were in Hawaii. We took the cast to rehearse in Hawaii, and we spent 3 days actually rehearsing scenes, sort of as a sense memory experience for Jim and the cast to bring back. And Jim had like a handy cam that he was filming these rehearsals with, and we made the cast get in the wardrobe. And Sam was in a little loincloth, pale as a ghost, with a plastic bow and a wig in his hair, and he's out there in the rainforest on our third day, and sure enough, there's a guy walking his dog. And the guy looks at Sam and says, "What are you doing?" And Sam proudly says, "We're making a movie, mate." Because we're making a movie. He goes, "Yeah," and he points to Jim. He says, "You see that guy over there? That's Jim Cameron. He did Titanic." And the guy looks up and goes, "Boy, he's gone downhill."
It's true. And of course, with Sam's charming Australian accent, which is as thick as Crocodile Dundee, that's one of the things that's fun about seeing how he did it, is seeing how Sam is versus his character. I think he would have gotten an Academy Award nomination if everybody knew that he wasn't American.
But there are a few other things that we really are taking advantage of what Blu-ray has to offer. We talked about the deleted scenes. I don't know if we touched on the fact that each time a player is used and goes to a deleted scene for the first time, and then the machine will now know this, it plays a little prompter of what the sequences are and how all these different elements are seen. It shows you what a green screen, it shows you how we added masks to faces. And it's a primer for watching these unfinished scenes. But because a Blu-ray, it allows the consumer only to experience that once, or they can choose it with a menu option. Those are the things. There's also
the audio, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, like I got in a lot of trouble around my house for Avatar being PG-13 rated because of language, and we have a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 9-year-old who all wanted to watch the movie over and over again. So my 6-year-old was running around the house saying "shit, goddamn it" for the next 2 weeks, and of course I caught flack from my wife. And I guess under that pressure, it popped into my head that with the things that you can do on a disc set like this, I said, well, why not just have an alternate audio choice instead of choosing Spanish language or whatever? Let's choose a family-friendly track. So we just took all of the ADR that we had done for the network release, which we haven't even put together yet, which is all the actors' voices. And we just went in and substituted for all the language. So you can actually watch the film. The picture cut's the same. We didn't try to go back and get it re-rated by the MPAA, but I think in the future you can actually go even that far with it. But it's really an alternate reality version of the movie that you can sit and watch with your kids without having to flinch every time somebody swears.
There are two other Blu-ray things that I want to mention that we try to take advantage of. One is BD Live. And we're using BD Live in 2 different ways. One, we have additional content that's going to be available on BD Live when you buy the disc, including a mockumentary that one of our crew members made that has Sam Worthington and Stephen Lang and others in it. And it's a very, very behind-the-scenes, very funny piece, but also add other scenes that we didn't have room to put on the 3-disc collection. But we're also using BD Live in advance of the movie, where owners of the current Blu-ray disc and go to BD Live and get previews of this material that we're looking at today and other material to get them excited, really about what BD Live, really has to offer. So, we're very excited about that. We also will have on the disc the artwork and all that other stuff.
We have a complete library of all the artwork. It's basically kind of a virtual art gallery. So you can go through, you can see the evolution of the characters, the evolution of the creatures, the plants, the world, the design of Avatar or Pandora. Because we spent about 2 years designing the film, concurrent with the time that we were developing all our software tools and our virtual production pipeline. We were just doing design. And we covered the walls of the art department with beautiful paintings. And so that's all available to go through. There's also a documentary that's 17 minutes long that is just made up of B-roll that we shot when we went down to the Amazon. My wife and I went down there twice in the aftermath of Titanic's release, and it was really the result of the resounding kind of impact of the messaging of the movie with people around the world, and especially in the indigenous community and in the nonprofit community where they're working on indigenous rights issues. And so, we wound up traveling all over the place to India, Indonesia, up to the tar sands in Canada, all dealing with indigenous rights issues. But one of the things that affected us the most was we went down to the Amazon and we saw how there's a hydroelectric project down there called the Belamonte Dam, which is going to displace 25,000 indigenous people from their homelands and affect their livelihood, their ability to fish and hunt and all the things that they do traditionally. And also, by the way, displace another 20,000 people from the only city in this whole vast empty region of the Amazon. So we got very engaged in this fight, and we were meeting with leaders of some of these tribal communities, and we're talking about guys in loincloths that are painted up. They had their war paint on, they had their bows and arrows, and they were ready to stand up to the bulldozers. And this is an ongoing battle. We wound up having to leave and go do some other things, but we basically cut off our vacation time that we had waited for 5 years, went back to Brazil, back to the Amazon. We did some rallies in Sao Paulo and Brasilia that tried to raise public awareness and so on. And so, the story of that is in the disc as well, because I think Avatar, part of what's interesting about it now after the fact is the kind of social message impact that the film had, and that's really unusual for a big kind of action adventure science fiction blockbuster to have that kind of life in the mind of audiences around the world, and it's become quite political in some places, very interesting. It's turned into a kind of a set of personal challenges, and the way I look at it is almost personal duties to follow up on this and to try to help in some of these cases where people have come forward to me and said, because of the impact that your movie has made around the world, you can do something, you can help us. And I think we've actually found that in certain fights, in certain areas, we've been able to do that and appeal to fans of the movie to think with their hearts instead of with their minds politically. And I think that's been actually quite helpful. And
Fox themselves embraced that on the April release, where they tied it in to Earth Day.
It was released on Earth Day.
That's right. And they made a commitment to plant 1 million trees, before the end of the year. So it's very exciting. Another thing that I think is
Fox have been tremendously supportive on some of these environmental themes. Notwithstanding, Fox being owned by Rupert Murdoch, actually, News Corp has made a pledge to be carbon neutral by the end of the year. The Million Tree Initiative, which was called the Home Tree Initiative, was a part of that. And the movie has turned out to be this kind of lens for focusing these ideas that I think is quite profound, because you have major corporations now thinking about how can I be more energy efficient, how can I do well by doing good, and Avatar is the poster child for that. We made a boatload of money, and we did it by actually doing something good, as opposed to just being just another kind of brain dead action movie.
Another area where the movie has really become synonymous with a certain area, and it plays so right into Blu-ray, because Blu-ray is the only way to do this at high quality in your home is 3D. And down the road, these movies are all going to be out in 3D. 3D is the way everything is going. We're just at the tip of the iceberg. It's going to be the way we watch all of our entertainment, all of our screens that we look at. And Blu-ray is going to allow us to deliver into the home the highest quality 3D presentation possible.
We've already mastered the 3D Blu-ray, and it looks spectacular. And the sets that are being made by the major CD companies, I think, look very, very good. There's still active glasses, or there's still glasses-based technology, and that's going to be around for another 5 years probably. There are various technical reasons they have to up the resolution before we get rid of the glasses, because they have to split the resolution for different discrete viewer positions. So we're ways off from that. But right now, you can have a very, very good home 3D experience. I would say if you sit close enough to the screen, and it's a 50 or 60 inch screen, it's the equivalent of watching it in a 3D movie theater.
So we're
going to sit close,
And Jim always does. When we're going to our screening room, if we're looking at a key shot, Jim gets out of the chair, gets right up on the floor in front of the screen. He's looking up and he's seeing it all. And pointing out all these details that nobody else is seeing. So
I know there's going to be somebody sitting in an IMAX theater in the front row like this, so I want to make sure they're having a good time too.
So I guess before we go to questions and answers, I think we'd like to thank all the people in this room who are pushing Blu-ray and keeping it on the forefront and making sure that we bring our entertainment into the home, because entertainment goes beyond any one medium. And at the end of the day, we know that the long term, more people are going to end up seeing the movies in general in their homes. And to have the quality like we have with Blu-ray is very exciting to both of us. So.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we bring up the house lights?
Oh, there are people out there.
Are there any questions?
Well, we answered everything, so.
Our first question comes from our colleagues in London. It's from Stuart O'Connor at The Guardian, and he asks you, do you see 3D as just Hollywood's flavor of the month, or will it have a longevity and viability in cinema and home entertainment?
I think we're way past that. It's almost, kind of a waste of time to even answer that question, because we know the answer. 3D's here, and it's here to stay, and that's been pretty resoundingly demonstrated over the last couple of years. It's not a flirtation. When 3D first came out in 1950 or 51, there were a spate of titles over a period of literally about a year, and then it vanished. And it vanished for a lot of technical reasons, just the way it was. They had a lot of quality issues in the field with projecting 3D. And, this is different. This is a renaissance, and it's going to continue indefinitely. It's going to come into the home. I think it'll be, the amount of content that we have as 3D movies is not going to drive the home video as much as the conversion to live broadcast and episodic and things like that. And so, you have various broadcasters like Direct and B-Sky and people like that who are actively getting into 3D. Some of the other networks are looking at it. They haven't jumped in yet. Discovery Channel are doing a 3D channel. So it's a bit like the HD launch. HD wasn't a flirtation. It's now pretty ubiquitous. And 3D is going to be exactly the same. The difference in the movie theaters is that it's a little bit more like color. There's a feedback effect that will happen between the movie format and what happens in the home. And if you think about color, color was around for a long time. It came out in the late 30s, but it wasn't until the mid-60s that it really every movie had to be in color. And the reason for it was color TV. So some movies are black and white, some were in color for a long period of time, for a couple of decades. And then finally color TV came along. Everybody had to have that. And once they had to have color TV, then every movie had to be made in color if it was going to get a network sale after the fact. So the one medium affects the other, and there's a feedback loop between them. And it's complex. It won't exactly map to what happened with color. It'll be its own thing. And we're going to have to be agile in order to be able to keep up. It's not a question of 3D, sort of slowly rolling out. It's a question of some people have leapfrogged over steps that I thought were going to take years. All of a sudden we've got these great sets. You can watch it in the home. We don't have the content. So now, I have a company that partners with Vince Payson, a company that builds and operates 3D cameras and leases them out for productions. Every single camera we ever built is off the shelves right now, out working on a whole bunch of 3D productions. And one of the biggest limitations right now is we don't have enough cameras, we don't have enough people that know how to do it. Once we get past that startup torque, then I think the curve is going to go practically vertical on this. And over the next 5 years, I'd say, we're going to see it roll into the home in a really resounding way. Once we get past the last threshold, which will be auto-stereoscopic display, meaning without glasses, then I think it's just going to be the way we watch all our media, both in the movie theater and at home. And that's probably, 8 to 10 years out.